We did it, we got those bastards out. We're going drinking till 8 passes out. Let's get disheveled, undignified, unsober. Let's wake up with bloodshot eyes, hungover. It's the end of an era. Tories
we can reveal it is a Labour landslide being predicted by the exit poll. A catastrophe for the Conservatives. Keir Starmer becomes the 7th Labour Prime Minister in history.
I'm just here laughing, dancing, beering. I'll probably need a painkiller flavored coffee. I'm also probably gonna need your kidney, Dad. I'm sorry, but it was all worth it. Tories electively murdered.
All right. Yo, 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 ladies and gents, how are we doing? It's a Friday night. It's what are we going to talk about tonight? What can we fill the show up with that normally spends so much of its time, so much of its content railing against the Tories? Oh, and they're done now. They're done. It's all over. We did it. We can now officially say that it's not get the Tories out, like hashtag GTTO. It's not get the Tories out. We got the Tories out. They're done. They're out. They're done. They're toast. It's a job well done, guys. Thank you to all of you who have, supported me and Super Tansky and Graham's Politics Social channel and the Tactical Voting Movement, the Movement Forward. Carol Vorderman, Marina Perkis, Gemma Forte. If any of you have ever shared any of our content over the last few years, thank you. Thank you so much. For all the retweets, for all the TikTok reposts, the shares, the likes, and the good old-fashioned word of mouth. Also, we've managed to get them out. And I have to say, do you know what? I do have some sympathy, guys. I've got some sympathy with those affected by the events of last night. I feel sorry primarily for some of the 10,000 reform bots that seem to come out of nowhere, like over the last 4 weeks or so. It's about 10,000 of them. And they're on TikTok too. It's not just Twitter. They're all over TikTok. Seemingly quite sort of coherent, like you can talk to them, they understand English, they speak English, but it's always their entire accounts and all of their history, everything is like pro-reform, pro-Farage, pro-this. It's insane. It's quite suspicious, right? But I feel bad for those 10,000 reform bots. Because there are some people out there, the bots themselves, I feel like they're not going to really exist any longer. They're gone in the air. So I feel sorry for them. But I also feel more sorry for the people who have built up followings based on the engagement that they get from those reform bots, It's like I can think of 2 or 3 people off of TikTok. Their entire account, all of their content is just them talking into their phone about reform, about how Nigel's got it right, about how Richard Tice has got some fresh new ideas, how the lefties are just too dense to understand their genius. Like that's their whole thing. Every single video, 3 videos a day, all about Farage and reform. And the reason that they are amped up is because there's like 10,000 reform bots commenting, sharing, resharing, reposting. Like how bummed out would you be this week, like today, tomorrow, maybe it hasn't dawned on them yet, I don't know. But how bummed out would you be, like, now that it's all over, you know? Now that that's done. Like you thought that you'd found your niche, you know? You thought you'd found the thing that finally worked for you as a content creator. You're like, this whole time, I've been trying different avenues, you know, different types of content. Me talking into my phone. This whole time I did, you know, what did I tried movie reviews, gardening tutorials, makeup videos, even, you know, a few of them. Ranting about football, about my favourite football team, and none of it worked. None of it. No reposts, no shares, no engagement. But finally, I found my thing, you know? Finally, it was weird. I was just, you know, one day I thought, I know, I'll put a video out about reform, and it just exploded. Just shares and comments. And I thought, well, finally, I found the thing that I am good at. People like my opinions about this. Goes and tells his wife, like, babe, I'm blowing up on TikTok over there. You go buy yourself a new swimsuit thing, because if this carries on, I'm going to earn a lot of money. I'm going to be on GB News and Talk TV by the end of next week. I promise you. You choose yourself a new swimsuit. I'll take you on a cruise, love. Is the level of confidence that some of these creators will have got to off the back of exploding in popularity from the 10,000 reform bots. And now, you know, the election's over. They wind down the bot farm. You know, because why bother keeping that going? Like, it was important in the campaign. It was a core component of the campaign strategy, seemingly. That and stealing people's photos of their dead grandparents. But now, you know, now they wind it down. And suddenly, where's that engagement? Where are the shares? Where's the likes? Where's all the followers gone? It's like, I don't understand. Last week, I was getting 500 retweets for everything I was saying, and it, like a load of randoms telling me, like, oh, you understand it, you're telling it how it is, and all. But now this week, nobody gives a shit. No, look at my engagement; it's right down. I guess it's true what they say about this, you know, big tech world and the upcoming generations. Maybe social media pop culture is fleeting. They're so fickle, they'll say. Like, it's going to be like, I'll tell you what it's like. If this is you, if you're a political content creator and you built up a misplaced sense of self-confidence off the back of these bots, like amping you up and commenting and telling you how great you were. You are the political content version of the women who run nutrition accounts on Instagram, right? Nutrition and wellness. But every photo, every video, every story is just like them in a bikini, wearing like next to nothing, or like bending over in a gym. You know, and they'll amass like 150,000 followers. It's a super popular account. Everyone wants to look at the pretty lady wearing next to nothing, bending over in the gym, on her wellness and nutrition account. But then what happens? Then, you know, they get the same misplaced sense of self-confidence. They're like, wow, I've got 150k. I'm doing really well. Do you know what? I should write a nutrition book, a book about a healthy diet and the things that I buy. And then they get confused when they're like, what the fuck? Like, how come... How have I amassed 150,000 followers on my nutrition account, but nobody's interested in my book? Why did none of them care about my book for my very successful social media account? Anyway, how was it for you guys last night? The election. People in the live chat. What's going on? Darian de A-Star is in the house. Moonfest Madness, that's a new name. I've not seen Moonfest Madness before, I don't think. What's Up to Wayne, also. Saw Wayne last night. Soul Reaper, Mojo Sabian, one of my patrons, is in. And Diz is in the house as well. How you guys doing? I should have prefaced this entire episode by explaining how hungover I am. I mean, it's in the title, right? But I was absolutely fucking hammered last night. I was so shit-faced. I was like, I used to call it when you get hit with the drunk shovel. You know, like 1 minute you're okay. And you're thinking to yourself, like, God, I can't believe I've had like 7 beers. I've had 7 pints. I'm handling this pretty well. And then out of nowhere, bang! I'm like, fuck. I was so fucking pissed. And do you know what? Like, I don't really feel guilty or embarrassed about it. Although I probably should do. But I feel like if ever there was a night to get undignifiably drunk, I feel like ejecting the Conservative Party from power after 14 years of misery, I feel like that's up there. It's basically a wedding. So, yeah, I was hammered. I took a seat at one point. I mean, I was already tired before I like went out because, you know, if you guys have young children or if your children, you know, used to be young, you will know that they wake up very early in the morning and, you know, every day is a long, long old day. But I got to a point where I was like, I have to sit down for a minute. Like my legs were aching, like I was starting to feel a bit fuzzy. And so I sat down in this bar and I just started to nod off. I was like that guy in a bar, just like that. And then bless her heart, Patsy Stevenson, like women's rights campaigner, you know, left-leaning causes, really, really sweet lady. She came over and rescued me. She was like tapping me on the shoulder. She was like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm just so fucking tired, Patsy." And she's like, "It's all right, like come with me." And then she took me down to the, like, Graham was doing his podcast thing, right? His live stream. And so then Patsy took me down to like an area near there where it was like nice and quiet. And then I took my hoodie out and I just had like a little rest until my taxi turned up. And I felt so bad, like embarrassed about it, like to her. I sent her a text this morning. I was like, I feel bad, but a bit weird about that. Thank you for rescuing me. So yeah, I was fucking hammered. But yeah, anyway, back to you guys in the live chat. How was your election results night? Did you celebrate? Did you crack open a beer, a wine, an IPA? Did you roll yourself a celebratory bifter? I think, have I just got a super chat or have I just got a like a new subscriber? Sorry, my mental cogs are clearly not working at 100% tonight. But yeah, anyway, back to my hangover. I woke up this morning and it takes a lot to make me unwell. But this morning I was unwell, dear listeners. I was not in a good way. MH Carer in the live chat says in the green room. Yes, I was down in the green room. In that area. Vorda's showed up. What a legend. I was trying to work out if because people had told me she was going to turn up. So I was sort of expecting to see her and, like, you know, introduce myself. But I didn't see her. So I don't know if she turned up, like, way later or if I was just, like, you know, having a rest in the green room. Anyway. So, yeah, I woke up this morning. I felt pretty awful. And then I had to go to my son's summer fair, which is always fun. Isn't it? Like, that's when it actually hits you, like, the most. It's the shame moment of, like, being a parent, being a 43-year-old father of 2 who was out until 2 a.m, drunk, falling asleep. And then you wake up and you're feeling unwell, you're sick, like you're not in a good way. But then you go to pick up your son and you go to his summer fair, you know, walking your son through the crowds of the fate, and everyone else is just laughing and smiling and happy, and you're just like, oh God. They're all like selling like it's like sweetie raffles and like, you know, fruit punch and all that, and I'm like, do any of these stalls sell Nurofen? Do they, like, please? All the happy, wholesome families having a great time. And you feel bad about it, you know, of course you do, as you're walking through. You know, you tell yourself it's okay because it's like a once in a sort of generation thing. We kicked out the Tories. It's a big moment. Of course you're going to want to celebrate. But you also simultaneously, concurrently, you're thinking like, I do feel bad. Like, I hope this isn't a lasting memory for my son, you know, sort of thing. Like how everyone else's dad is happy and jovial and into the spirit of things. And his dad is like just tired and grinless, you know, like spool forward 15 years and my son's in therapy. Like, yeah, well, my dad was a pretty miserable guy, to be honest. I remember going to the school fete, you know, and he just could not crack a smile. Everyone else's dad having a great time. My dad, miserable, you know, and I'm going to have to interrupt that therapy. I'm going to be like, no, I wasn't. I wasn't miserable all the time, Jacob. You know, I was actually quite jovial. I was quite outgoing, would you believe? I just fucking hated school fetes. Because they suck. You know, I'd been out the night before celebrating removing the Conservative Party, I will have to say to him. Removing the Tories from power. That's when I used up all my smiles and laughter, son. I laughed my ass off the whole night, in fact, when that happened. Because that shit matters. Because they were the guys that defunded your school, Jacob. That meant that now they have to run these bullshit fetes to raise money, the shitty tombola, just to be able to afford to upgrade their burglar alarms. That is the reality of this fate that we're all in. Teenagers breaking into a school and nicking all the PE equipment. You know, why weren't you smiling at the school fete, Daddy? Because I was already delighted hours earlier that I had saved the country the previous night. And maybe that means that this school will now get the money that they need for the security alarms. And they won't need this fate. All these fucking parents walking around smiling and laughing in blissful ignorance that I've saved the school. How come you don't show the same joy though, Aid? How come you're not smiling? How come you're not jovial and outgoing and laughing and smiling? Their bliss. All those other parents, right? I hope none of them are watching. All of their bliss comes from the ignorance that there might still be a publicly funded education system in 5 years, right? Because of removing the Tories from power. How come they show that joy, though? I am the joy, is how I feel. Not really. No, not really, guys. Diz is in the chat saying, I just got told off for swearing. Is that because I was swearing? Did I drop the F-bomb? And now you're getting in trouble with it. Darian's in the chat saying, all those happy parents just had better drugs than you did. Yeah. Do you know what? I was thinking earlier about how drugs may have improved last night, or rather my performance within last night. You know, I'm not going to tell anyone else how to live their life. I'm not even going to say that we should legalize drugs. We should. But I wonder if, like, would the smart move have been to medicate myself with some sort of substance? I'm not suggesting, you know, it might be an illegal one. Could be a legal one. Could just be coffee. Would the smart move last night have been to pre-medicate myself with a substance that would have kept me awake longer? Maybe. But then you always run the risk of, like, then being awake, like, all night. Like, you come back home at 2, you can't sleep because you've had too much coffee or Red Bull. So, yeah, anyway, really what all of this comes down to, right, is that, just going back to the fete thing, I don't really like fetes all that much. I find them hectic, overcrowded, but I like being there with my son, seeing him happy, seeing him mess around with his friends. It's nice to see that, right? But do you ever see other people? It doesn't have to be at a fete. It could be anywhere, right? At a festival. It could be at like a local village thing or, whatever. Do you ever see other people just, smiling, laughing, nice people, wholesome, happy, and your first thought when you look at them is like, yeah, oh yeah, right. Like you just don't believe it. Like, what does this say about my mental state, especially now that I'm clearly the hangover is having a bit of an impact on my self-assessment of my psychology tonight. But what does it say about my psychology that when I see happy, smiling, laughing people, 9 times out of 10, I am like, oh, come on, though. Like, nobody is that naturally happy all the time, are they? Don't stop pretending that you're a nice, normal person. This isn't an Enid Blyton novel, or whatever. Like, how is this fun for you, this fate? Why are you smiling at this fucking fate? Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the results from last night, shall we? I haven't done a massive amount of prep for this show. You can probably tell that. Shall I have a beer? Shall I say it? It feels sort of weird to be sat here broadcasting without a beer in my hand. Like that is a core component. That is as much a core component of this show, of this podcast, as the Reform bots and pictures of dead grandparents were of the Reform campaign strategy. This needs beer. They need weird internet subterfuge. So, Moonfest Madness is in the chat. Have a beat, he says. I assume that's a typo. A beat. Let's not go down the OnlyFans. I know the content is questionable tonight, but I don't know if we need to go the OnlyFans route just yet. He says, hair of the dog. Woof. All right. Here we go. You ready? What am I doing? What am I doing? Yeah, anyway, we should talk about the results, should we? From last night. I don't know if you guys noticed, because so much of the coverage has been around Reform, right? Farage, Tice. They've got 5 seats now, as of tonight. One of them, there was like 3 recounts because the result was so close. And they've nabbed another one tonight. Oh, Lord. Christ, and I've got the Patreon meetup tomorrow. So there's a big election night party where I'm the most drunk I've been probably in years. Then I'm drinking on this thing, and then tomorrow I'm going into East London to meet my Patreons and YouTube community backers, and I'll probably get on it again then. So by Sunday, Christ, what sort of? If me at the school fete, like walking around miserable, like some sort of, did you ever see the scene in Trading Places? Where Dan Aykroyd is like hammered and in the Santa costume, like pulling out a thing of gammon and eating it on a public train. Just horrible, dishevelled, drunkard nonsense. I honestly think I'm running the risk of that could be me by Sunday. I think if you live in Aldershot and you see a guy walking around in a Santa suit in July, are we in July now? Yeah, of course we are. Looking somewhat dishevelled, it could well be me. Anyway, yes, results. So much of the talk has been around Reform, for good and bad reasons. The bad reasons, obviously, the bots are distorting the social media coverage, if you want to call it that. But also, you've got a lot of right-leaning press media in this country. You have a majority right-wing, like literal tangible newspapers. 66% of those are right-leaning, and because most, stop me. I've obviously told you this stuff before, but for the benefit of the newer listeners and viewers, most big media companies, global stations like LBC, BBC Breakfast, Sky News, all of these places do a paper review. And so then they take their talking points off these newspapers. And because they're 66% right wing, most of the news for the rest of the day, the tone is set. And that is why the conversation is always about fucking boats and net migration figures. And yeah, you get the idea. So anyway, where was I? Most of the conversation has been around reform thus far. But I want to talk about Lib Dems. Guys, can we hear it for the Lib Dems? Can we give some love to the Lib Dems in the live chat, guys? Because the Lib Dems, right, little history lesson if you're newer to politics, the Lib Dems had their asses handed to them at, I think it was the 2017 general election, if you can force yourself to cast your mind back to that traumatic period for fans of the Labour Party. They had their asses handed to them for a very simple reason. They went into a coalition with the Conservative Party in 2010. And part of that coalition or pre-coalition campaign was that the Liberal Democrats, as a, quote, liberal party of liberal sensibilities, part of their campaign was to, I think, trash tuition fees, just get rid of them completely. And you could say, well, they were just being cynical, they never really meant it, they were just trying to get the youth out, you know, the youth vote to come and support them in that election. Or you could say they are liberal, but they were forced into abandoning the pledge by the Tories, who they then went into coalition with, like they had no actual bargaining power with the Tories. But whichever way you slice it, they promised something and then they reneged on it. And so then when it came to the next general election, they were punished. And they went right back down to 11 fucking seats. They were almost extinct at that point. And I remember people putting out commentary around that time saying, like, when you've only got 7 MPs in your party, it's really difficult to attract donors. And if you don't have donors, how are you even running your office? Clearly, this is not a problem for Reform because they have Richard Tice, right? Millionaire, throwing money at them. But for somebody like the Liberal Democrats, whose policies traditionally would not necessarily serve evil right-wing millionaires, it's going to be hard, and harder still then when you go back down to like that number of seats. Anyway, as of last night, the reason, you know, I want to talk about the Liberal Democrats and to show them some love is because they went from 11 to 70 fucking seats last night. How about that? 70 seats, or somebody in the chat saying 71. MH Carer says 71 seats. A record and compensation for the coalition election wipeout. So says MH Carer. Yeah. And Louise Darby says Lib Dems got Maidenhead. That's true. It's a town very close to my heart because I grew up there. My brother was saying to me, he still lives over that way. And he's also quite... I don't think he's that involved in the Conservative movement there as much as he used to be. But he did used to hang out in the Conservative club there a lot. And he's met Theresa May a few times. And he used to go out doorstepping for them. So he's, you know, he knows a few people around that area. But he's one of these traditional home counties Conservatives with a small c who is disgusted with their conduct of the last few years, and he's completely abandoned them, but he still knows people. And like he was telling me before all of the results were announced, he was saying you know, the Lib Dems have come so close to getting Maidenhead before, and every time they say they think they've got it in the bag, and every time the Tories just inch it, they retain it. And I said, yeah, but I think when you look at the recent like electoral data, and when you look at the tactical voting websites, and when you look at the anger out there, and it's not just Maidenhead, right? It's across the southeast and southwest, out into Somerset with Mog. The anger that is being felt by home counties Conservatives is real and visceral, and you know, they're pissed off about sewage ruining the environment, ruining the rural landscape. They're pissed off because none of their kids can afford a house in the same town that they're in. There's a myriad reasons why those types of voters would abandon the Conservatives. Also in Maidenhead. Anyway, so he was sort of sceptical. I was like, if ever there was a time when it was going to flip to the Liberal Democrats, I said it would be now. But it spooked me, like that thought that what he was saying. It spooked me a bit. I was like, maybe we have sort of counted our chickens a little bit early here, guys. So imagine my joy when the result came in. The Conservative Party have lost the constituency of Maidenhead. Theresa May's constituency, Conservative Party have just lost that. Liberal Democrat gain. I was like, yeah! Down you go. But yeah, Liberal Democrats making a comeback. And when you think, let's not miss out the Greens as well, from 1 seat to 4, which is, still comparatively to Labour, small potatoes. But when you marry all these numbers up together, it actually gets quite exciting because you've got Labour, obviously, with 400 seats. You've got the Liberal Democrats with another 70. I forget what Labour's exact number was now. Let's just say it's 400 or 410, right? You add 70 onto that, that's 480. You add another 4 on for the Greens, 484. So you're knocking on the door of 500 seats of parties that have liberal sensibilities. Like, I know everyone always bangs on about Keir Starmer is centre-right. Keir Starmer's a, Tory with a red tie and all of that stuff. And yes, there's conversations that need to be had around that. And yes, a lot of us would like to see him relax the rhetoric on immigration and borders and all of that stuff. Like, I always feel like he's playing the tabloid game with that. And actually, if you look at his background, he is quite a progressive left-leaning individual. So if I put my faith in him as a leader of a progressive party, then you have almost 500 seats of progressive representation in the House of Commons, which is actually pretty substantial, isn't it? That is the sort of change. Those are the sort of numbers that could push Britain into a more, progressive paradigm, I think, politically. So yeah, almost 500 seats of progressive ideology. So I don't know about you guys, but I cannot wait for them to legalise drugs. I might stay awake past 1 a.m. then. I can't wait for them to reform the prison system to a compassionate Scandinavian model. I mean, it's still a mystery to me why so many Tories are so against that when so many of them, I think, are probably destined for prison themselves. You'd think they'd be all about prison reform. I am, of course, alluding to the, COVID fraud, 12 billion that Labour have committed to investigating as soon as they take office. So that's going to be fun. That's going to be fun for a few enterprising, evil, billionaire right-wing donors who just so happen to coincidentally end up with hundreds of millions of pounds of PPE contracts and all that. I can't wait for this new 500-seat progressive House of Commons to rejoin the EU. Can we please just rejoin the EU? Can we just have grown-up conversations, please? Science-led, evidence-led. Instead of this endless subscription to tabloid hyperbole about everything. Well, what are we going to do? We're going to stop the boats. No, just shut the fuck up about boats. I think we've all earned a little break with the boat rhetoric, okay? Unless it's Baroness Moan's yacht. What else could we get over the line with a 500-seat progressive House of Commons, guys? We could socialise childcare with an evidence-led, stats-led policy portfolio. You know, I remember reading studies on this when I was really on a big tip about childcare. A year and a half ago, I was doing TikToks about it, about how all of the evidence, all of the stats suggest that if you socialised childcare and freed up these parents, they'd go back into the workforce. They'd earn, the average salary, let's say it's like 20k, 30k, 40k. That money gets taxed. That's more money that goes into the treasury. It stacks up that the amount of money that you invest in socialised childcare comes back in spades into the treasury. So if we're all so obsessed about growth, if we never stop banging on about growth in the few minutes that we take a breather from, the boats, if it's growth that we're obsessed with, we should. It's a no-brainer. Just socialise the childcare. You get, I think it worked out like an extra 12 billion comes back in NI and income tax. So yeah, I'm sure that all of these policies, rejoining the EU, prison reform to a Scandinavian model, taxing the very wealthy, socialising childcare, and legalising drugs, I'm sure that these are all just around the corner. They'll all definitely happen. Jean-Luc Picard is in the chat. I assume it's not actually Patrick Stewart. But Jean-Luc Picard says, how many high-profile Tories will just quit because they are just a husk? What does husk mean in that context? How many will quit? Do you mean like they're just on the take? They were only ever in it for while they would be in government, so that then they could attract donors and bribes and speaking engagements and all of that shit. Because honestly, I don't think there's enough of them left now for that to really be. Like if they were just in it, like to be on the take, I feel like that decision's been made for them. Like they've been ejected, they've been voted out. Tim Ballum says Musk empty shell. I mean, I think honestly, probably most of them who were ejected will go on to roles in like lobbying firms, Tufton Street kind of stuff. A few of them will get jobs in right-wing newspapers. And they'll rail against Keir Starmer and say that he's doing everything wrong. That'll be a big thing. Michael Gove, I think, has suggested he's just going to go back to Fleet Street. Some of them will go into like TV presentation, I guess. Some of the more, engaging ones. Be interesting to see if GB News hang on to Mog, right? Because I think like it was interesting for them to get a guy who was sat round a cabinet table to be a presenter for them. But now he's no longer even an MP. I wonder, and he's not a natural presenter, is he? I mean, look who's fucking talking. But don't throw those stones in your glass house, Aid. But he's not. I don't think he's a particularly engaging presenter. Do you know what? I will pat myself on the back. I'll say, I think I'm a better presenter than Jacob Rees-Mogg. Sue me. So yeah, I think a lot of them will go to like lobbying firms and journalism, and it's like a rotating door in that world. I think it's one of the reasons that they have such a hard time empathizing with everyday people, with regular people getting into work or earning enough money to pay their rent or to provide a good life for their kids. The reason that it's so hard for them to understand that is that their lives are actually drenched in that privilege. Like, there's no such thing as a sort of, a period of unemployment or like worrying about your mortgage or worrying about what kind of life your children are going to grow up and live. When actually your life, your employment prospects, even when you get voted out and you can't set foot in Parliament any longer, there's no period. Oh God, like what am I going to do? Like Lee Anderson, even if he had been voted out of Reform, of Ashfield as the Reform candidate, which he hasn't been, he would just continue. He'll present a show on GB News. He would be booked as a speaker on people like that. Once they enter that world, they have a level of security that seems to be like memory erased in terms of like what it's like to actually struggle, I think, out there. Born with a silver spoon is what you are after, says Jean-Luc. Yes, you're right. Same thing. But yeah, anyway, back to the Lib Dems. Here's a weird question for you guys. Here's a weird question. Do you think Ed Davey, now he's out of campaign mode, right? Now he's returning to work, basically, right? As leader of the Liberal Democrats. Do you think now he's out of campaign mode, he's got like the Monday blues, you know? Like you or I would if we returned from an adventure holiday where everyone is actually smiling and laughing and genuinely having a good time. All those activities, the bungee jumping, the theme park, the roller coaster rides, the canoeing with people saying he was going to fall in the water, all of these adventure park activities. Do you think he's got the Monday blues now he's going back to work? You know, I think he might do. Or do you think like it was all a little bit much for him? Do you think he's sort of, you know, a little bit shaken now, having been put through all of that? His campaign team are like, you're never going to guess what you're doing today. Base jumping. Base jumping off the top of the thing in Trafalgar Square. And he's like, oh, God. I bet he's actually quite happy that the campaign is over. I bet he sits back down in Liberal Democrats HQ. I bet his staff are asking him, you know, what's first on the agenda then, Ed? What should we do with our new 70 MPs? What's the policy portfolio looking like? And he's just shaking. He's just riddled with PTSD from all of these horrible activities that they put him through. Just sat there trembling. And the staff are like, Ed, we are trying to formulate plans and strategy and policies and bills here, and you haven't said anything for 45 minutes. And he's just like, this is no more roller coasters. This is, yeah, fine, okay, no more roller. Okay. Can we get him a coffee or a hair and a dog, maybe? Just trembling like he's just walked out of an 8.9 earthquake or something. Here's another question for you, guys. I've just seen somebody. Alexander Campbell is in the chat. It's another new name. Hey, Alex. He says, this champagne socialist is just finishing his bottle from last night. Do you know what? I was tempted to buy some champagne for yesterday, but I'm really, really glad that I didn't now, because on the way into the venue, they were way over the top with the security, searching everybody down. Like, you better not have a knife in this bag. I'm like, there's like 300 cuddly, fluffy lefties coming in. Like, I don't know what you think you're going to find on any of us lot. A teddy bear. But I had a beer in my backpack, which I had 3 beers earlier at the Airbnb that we're all at. And I had one left in my bag, which is fine. I might have had it on the train home or something. Train beers. # train beers. And the girl looked at me like I was a piece of fucking shit. She really she pulled it out of the bag, like this exact bag, right? She pulled it out. She goes, like she'd busted me. And I was already, half cut at that point. And I tried to explain in my head. Here's what I was going to say. In my head, I was going to go like, no, it's for the train home. Like I had some earlier around a friend's house, and then I had one left, but I don't want to just, throw it away. So I'm keeping it for the train. But is there a cloakroom where I could leave the bag? Because I don't plan on drinking it in there, because I understand that you have a bar and I would never disrespect your venue like that. That's what I was planning to say. It was up here somewhere. I had all of that paragraph written out and ready to put out. But do you know what actually came out of my head as she picked out this can and looked at me like I was a piece of shit? She's like, what actually came out was this. Oh, it was BB, the train at home. And she just tossed it straight in a bin. And it fucked me off. It's like, what does a beer cost now? It's like $2.90 or something, a little can. But I was a bit like, come on, settle down. Anyway, here's another question for you while we've still got time. Fuck me, it's 20 past 8 already. This has flown by. Here's another question for you in the live chat. Let's see. In fact, before I'll throw you one last question, and let me just quickly read some of these comments. Alex Chapman says Sophie Corcoran, is having a breakdown. It's glorious. Didn't she say the other day she was quitting politics? And I felt something close to sympathy for her, because I think it probably is quite hard for her. A, being a woman in politics is just generally not that much fun, I gather. B, being working class and a woman in politics, probably also not that much fun. CC Angela Rayner. Then third, being a right-wing grifting woman in politics, where it's so obvious that that's your thing. Is like, obviously you're going to get a lot of abuse if you post a load of tweets that appear to be needlessly provocative. So yeah, I saw a thing from her the other day saying she'd been overlooked for a role or something, and that she was thinking about taking some time off for mental health, was it, or something? I don't know. Maybe it's for the best. Maybe everyone needs a break from Sophie. Anyway, right, let's look at... should I do one more thing for the live chat? Let's do it. Another one, shall we? And then we'll do the final question. Alex says, so glad that Truss has lost her seat. Yeah, me too. Billy says, blow up sledgehammer in your pants. I don't know what that's a reference to. That sounds like a title of one of the other episodes of the podcast. That's how abstract and strange that sounds. Sounds like a metaphor that I've used for something that I then named the podcast episodes after. Jess Phillips had a tough time, says Louise. Yeah. Yeah, I haven't... Do you know what? I've seen the clip going through my feed, but I haven't listened to it yet. But I gather she was heckled. People were shouting at her and she just sort of stood her ground and waited for them to finish or something. Again, another woman in politics not having a fun time. It's pretty gross. So, okay. Final question, guys, while we still got time. Which ejected Tory will you, dear viewers, dear listeners, which one will you miss most? And you can't say none of them. Who are you going to miss the most? In terms of, like if you watch a movie, right, and there's a baddie in it, and then the baddie dies, there's always a bit of you that's like, oh, well now, like, he's dead already. What's the rest of the movie going to be about? Or like, now I'm not sure what I should rail against. Or like, so is there a Tory that you enjoyed hating, and now they're not there, and you're going to be robbed of purpose? Everyone needs a villain. So is there someone like that? Which ejected Tory will you somewhat miss the most? Could it be Ben Bradley, with his assertion that poor people will only spend their universal credit money on crack and brothels? Not if we legalise it, Ben. Will we miss him? Could we miss Ben Bradley? Will we miss Brendan Clark-Smith, who dismissed food banks as a political weapon? Don't know if you remember that one. He also told firefighters using a food bank that they need to learn how to budget. Oh! Always putting out the greatest hits. Brendan Clark-Smith. Can you help me? I'm starving. My children haven't eaten in a week. Can I please? I just need a little bit of help until I get back on my feet. You need to learn how to budget, love. Classic Tory. Perhaps learning how to budget will be something that will visit Brendan Clark-Smith. This is the thing that gets me. Is like Brendan Clark-Smith and Ben Bradley are both now unemployed, and I actually don't think they're going to be included in the lobbying firms. No right-wing, the Times and the Telegraph aren't going to pay Ben Bradley to write his thoughts out as an opinion piece, are they? Or Brendan Clark-Smith. They're not going to be included in that rich boys club. They're not drenched in privilege in the same way as the silver spoon cunts that we were talking about earlier are. So they actually do have a risk of being unemployed and needing some fucking help. But the short-termism in them is so real. It's like, oh yeah, I'm a Tory now. I'm a Tory MP. I'm just going to be a bit of a prick. Dismiss these guys. Learn how to budget. Dismiss this desperate woman. You'll only spend it on crack and brothels. And then, what's that? I'm unemployed. Oh wow, I did not see this coming. Oh, this is quite awkward and inconvenient for me. So yeah, will we miss either of those? Do we think? Will they miss them at the Carlton Club? Like, I imagine a lot of the 2019 intake, right? Your red wall Tories that entered the Conservative Party as MPs off that Boris Brexit wave in 2019. I imagine a lot of them who have now been removed from office, I imagine them sitting in the Carlton Club, making their last pints of Carling last forever. Because they know that the security guard, who's just like 20 feet away, right? They know that the security guard has heard that they are not Tory MPs anymore. And now he's just eyeballing them. Just waiting to kick them out. Like, hey, you two, finish up your drinks. Membership has expired. Just waiting for it. Will we miss Jacob Rees-Mogg, do we think? He was top of the list of the MPs that I wanted to see lose their seat. I was like, oh, come on. Let's do this. He's never going to be short of a job. He is drenched in privilege. He absolutely will be included in lobbying firms and all the rest of it. Or maybe he'll make his money by selling abortion pills that he domestically rails against. Again, maybe that's his post-parliamentary career. I saw a clip of Jacob Rees-Mogg. Did anybody see this, right? Gullis did lose his seat, Darren, in the chat, yes. Gullis, of course, another one of the 2019 intake. I saw a clip of Jacob Rees-Mogg where they were out. It was a journalist, sort of on the street, vox popping, usual stuff, out on the campaign trail in his constituency in Somerset. And they were talking about, I think, the Liberal Democrats who were campaigning vociferously in that area. And then who just so happened to drive by? Jacob fucking Rees-Mogg in his big black Jaguar. And he wound down his window. He manually wound down his window to talk to the journalist. And you're never going to fucking believe. Guess what he had playing in his car? On his car stereo, blaring out. He actually had Rule Britannia playing in his car. In his big black Jaguar. I was like, this is not a real person. How can this be a real person? He's just not. He can't be. Like, if he was a character dreamt up in a movie about out-of-touch posh men, if it was being written and the scriptwriter wrote this character and gave him all of these attributes, the posh accent, the Eton education, the Jaguar, the double-barrel surname, the glasses, the Victorian suits, and the Rule Britannia. You would tell the writer, you would be like, you've gone too far. You're pushing it now. You want to make him posh, fine, but don't beat the audience around the head with it. Will we miss him, though? Did we enjoy seeing these losers get ejected from their positions of power and influence? Liz Truss, actually. Somebody mentioned Liz Truss earlier in the chat. Will we miss Liz Truss in some weird, masochistic way? Let us praise the Lord. Liz Truss of the deep state brought me down. The left-wing economic establishment ruined my genius plan fame. She was voted out and she refused to give a speech. Don't know if any of you were aware of that. Normally when you lose your seat in a general election, you give a little speech. You're gracious. You say, you apologise maybe to the constituents if you fell short of X, Y, and Z. Liz Truss said, go fuck yourself. I'm not doing that. I'm not giving a speech or being gracious. Refused to give a speech. I mean, that's when you know that you're kind of fucked, really, isn't it? professionally, politically, there's no way back for Elizabeth Truss. There's just not. That's when you know you're fucked, is when you can't even bring yourself to stand on that podium and give a gracious speech to your successor, because you know that whatever you say, literally anything you say, any words, they're going to be clipped and memed and shared and mocked, aren't they? Whatever you like, you're like, no good can come of this. like if I open my mouth for 2.5 minutes and even say something nice and gracious, still no good can come of that. That's how far I've fucked myself. Even saying nice things will cause me problems now. That's how deep I've gone. So yeah, politically she's finished. But maybe Friday night podcasting, maybe that's a career in that could beckon. If everything you say gets you into trouble, no matter how good or bad it is. Darren says, just quickly, we'll do a few more comments in the live chat, and then I'll have to nurse my wounded head, and then try and get myself back to something resembling respectable for tomorrow's Patreon meetup. Moggy reminds me of Slugworth from Willy Wonka, says Wayne. Yeah, he does, doesn't he? There's definitely a resemblance there, and mannerisms as well. Darren says, Liz the Lettuce Truss destroyed by bag of the turnip Taliban? I'm so lost, Darren. Turnip. Bag of the turnip Taliban. I'm still lost. W. James says the best speech Liz ever did is this one, where she kept her mouth fucking shut. Do you remember when she did cause all of the mini-budget stuff, like the bond markets imploded, the pound imploded, and I remember there were memes going around at the time where it was like, it was a guy like panicking and like shitting himself, like noticeably shitting himself, and then the caption underneath was like, the pound every time Liz Truss opens her fucking mouth. It's like, I remember that stuff. And now maybe she's right. Maybe it's best if she does just close her lips for a bit. A period of silence from you, Liz, would be most welcome. Liz Truss will do a podcast with Diane Abbott. Could happen. I mean, we're definitely in, and that's from W. James. We're definitely in this era now, aren't we, of having a left and a right figure from, former parliamentary roles. You've got, obviously Alistair Campbell, Rory Stewart. You've got, what's the other one? Ed Balls and George Osborne. So yeah, why not? Why not have Liz Truss opposite Diane Abbott? Other than the reason I don't think actually anybody would listen to it. But, if that's how they want to spend their time, good for them. Diz has just popped up in the chat. Literally, like a lot of people react to what I say, or they offer me further information. They expand the conversation. Diz just comes marching into the chat going, yeah, piss off, Liz. And I am here for it. Anyway, speaking of pissing off, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to jump into the Discord now and talk to my Patreons for a little bit. Stick around on YouTube, though. At 9 o'clock, Politics Social will be on. Wayne will definitely be on it. I'm going to see how tired I feel in the next half an hour. I might just go to bed. But if this beer continues to perk me up, be interesting to do, see the stats or the volume or the energy from this episode, this podcast, at the beginning, before I've had the beer, to halfway through where I start having a beer. Have I got more energetic and outwardly going? Anyway, I have got to run. Thank you so much to all the Patreons and the YouTube community backers. I will be back next week for the midweek show, Tuesday or Wednesday, and then again next Friday night for the Friday night live show. Until next time, keep it Binfluencer, keep it Booge, and we are out this motherfucker.